inflation, if you talk about global economic winds, which is talking about how various economies in the whole world are faring, it has been troubling, especially during this time. So this budget was especially during a time when the government's hands are tied, their budgets are a bit restrained because of the fiscal deficit in view, and especially if there is a lot of impetus or boost required by various sectors. I don't think in the full aspect, the government has the ability to do it because already the fiscal deficit is high. Already the economy is not doing fantastic. So they have to focus on various things. And that's why you see even in tax front or the expectations of various industries are not fulfilled, apart from a few industries which are anyways growing in an economy like this and times like this, which definitely include number one is information technology. Everything is driven by information technology. And I believe when we will talk about information technology, I like to point out one thing very importantly, that the budget does not drive information technology, or the government's policies do not drive the information technology sector. If you talk about technicalities and if you talk about their knowledge base and so on, it is actually a little different and how it really works. Because, for example, if you see GST, the government forms the GST law and so on, but it is implemented by the technology giants of India, which is TCS, Infosys, Wipro, few names like this, and they are the ones who implement everything, and they are already ready with it. So that is why you have to understand why the government is already reducing timelines, is focusing on faceless appeals. Now the infrastructure is already made up. It's not something that they are looking to or they're proposing to focus on. A lot of it has already been done. Today, the technology backing the income tax department is really, really high. The big data focus is already brought in with the way Form 26 AS has been drafted and the way everything, all the information is already with the income tax department. We are living in a very different kind of a society already, and therefore certain changes have been brought in which are very welcome for an economy and taxpayers on a macro level, which are like pre-filling of the IT system of the income tax returns. If you talk about GST, it's majorly IT driven. It's digitally driven. So therefore, they have all the information available with them. There's e-invoicing already being to be implemented very soon, which major companies are already trying to implement and change their ERP systems. So through that, they will get a lot of information. There is faceless appeals and various ways I mean, the famous scheme is Vivad Se Vishwas, which is reducing disputes and ensuring that more people come in and pay taxes due without worrying too much about the penalties and interest. And up to a certain level, they say that this is fine because it's disputed for so long that now we would like to get some money instead of it staying like that for years that it already has. So that is the perspective. If you talk about reassessment, and I'm going to make it a little bit not very technical. If needed, I'd love to take it up more technical, but given the audience, I don't think technical will help at the moment. But broadly, reassessment is a tool that was available to the income tax department to say that if you've escaped any income, that if some income was to be taxed and it has not been taxed, then we have a specified number of years to catch up on you. And if we find out, then we can issue a notice and reinitiate the assessment proceeding to basically get that money back or that due taxes back to the government. So that has been changed now. For a certain, they've thought through this from a big data standpoint, which is a very good one to go for, which is to reduce the compliance burden and give more of ease to major people up to a specified threshold. So for example, if up to 10 lakhs, 50 lakhs, we want to say that for these, they are in the category of not large taxpayers, and therefore they should be dealt differently with giving more ease of payments, more ease of functioning, and reducing interaction with the income tax departments and issuing notices and harassment, because that kind of leads to that in case of small taxpayers. So that is a very welcome move. But at the same time, reassessment proceedings have been extended. The timeline has been extended for large taxpayers. So if it is beyond the specified threshold, The earlier limit was 6 years or 7 years. How you count it is different. But from the financial year end, it used to be 7 years. Now it has been increased to 10 years. However, for small taxpayers, this has been reduced significantly, which is a very welcome move for most, because then at least they have, I mean, they're sure that no reassessment notice will come to them. The emphasis is also on higher compliance for at least the higher, the big corporates and taxpayers. Because if you see, there have been changes on TDS, TCS, which requires overhaul in the ERP system, which are not very easy to make or to comply with, but is the need of the hour, and already things have been happening. There is a taxpayers charter which is to be introduced, which has been the long-standing demand, and now it is coming. So it is very good. What it basically means is there are certain. So when you're dealing, for example, if I have to represent for one case, or one person has to represent his own case and goes to the tax department is a big machinery. I mean, it's a big authority. So it's generally faced that individual taxpayers' rights and duties are not enshrined in a charter document to provide them with certain principles, with certain safeguards against the tax department's operations and the way they operate. So that is a very welcome move. We would be really looking forward, because out of this charter, a lot of arguments will be taken, a lot of pleas will be taken, and everyone will be looking forward towards this, because this will decide on how to move forward on at least appeals. When you talk about fake invoices, this has been a biggest problem for India, at least from the GST perspective. While GST enables and is a great revolutionary tool to really change the entire landscape, and it already has. But since we are in the transition phase, it takes a lot of effort and time. And I mean, I'm sure the economy also goes up and down, which everyone is aware of. And whenever you overhaul or change a tax law, but that's really brought in. But with the big data already running the way it is, the fake invoices are generally caught up, and now they are becoming more and more stringent, even in their policies, even in law, and are giving clear indications that you should not do such things. Even for charitable trusts, for example, if you go today and you give any amount of charity towards charitable institutions for whatever purposes that they are engaged in, if they give you a tax exemption certificate saying that this amount that you have paid is actually tax exempt, the emphasis already was to ensure that the payment is not made in cash. Now those limits have been further reduced for various purposes, and now a reconciliation statement is also required by the trusts and the charitable trust to deposit, and they will link it up with the PAN. So basically, if I make a payment to a charitable trust saying I've deposited an X amount, the income tax department would like to now verify from the data taken from the charitable trust as well. So they will have to file more and more information, and they will maintain a complete reconciliation that whoever is saying has given money to you and is going to claim a deduction also tallies with your report of saying that you have received money from these people, and that you are fully explaining how are you utilizing this, how will you utilize it in the future, and whether tax exemptions are to be given in that front or not. So there is a bit of changes brought in for charitable trusts as well, in terms of their registration, in terms of how they are to provide the reconciliation statements for the donations that have been received, and also the digital economy. I mean, this has been already there for the past so many years that Indian government has been focusing on digitalizing everything. And so you can see the financial sector has already been revolutionized, has transformed into that. There is a strong focus, and now the government gives more benefits to people who are transacting digitally in terms of their expenditure and income being mostly in the bank. If 95% of that is the case, then you get exemptions in form of lower compliances, exemptions in form of lower tax rates, or preferential treatment in that front. And also in the front that, tax audit requirement will not be there. So that already has been happening. There has been some problems for the Indian tax system, which I always talk about, because whenever I've addressed a foreign community, their issues and problems have been very sane, in my opinion, and their rationale is also right. Indian government has kind of gone against the international tax principles many times in the past by bringing in retrospective amendments. I mean, Vodafone case is the one of the most, advertised and most debated case of India, which highlights that very clearly. And the move of India kind of has been that the government of India then changes the law even after a Supreme Court judgment has come in favor of one thing or the other after years of debate by the most wise people. So the judiciary system is kind of overhauled and is not given credit to, past judgments and keep them as the rule of law, has been the case of India, which it has been battling with. And that kind of has been done a little bit more, but not in the same front or with the same intention. And this one is still not on the same footing, but this is something that has to be avoided because retrospective amendments are something that the government has already ensured and assured that will not happen. But somewhat like that has now again happened, at least the wording is such, and there is ambiguity to some front towards the amendment brought in into section 36 and 43B, which is actually talking about the usage of the values. Say, for example, they say deemed to have always been the case that this is not allowed or it has been clarified. So it has a retrospective force, which is not very welcoming if you talk about from an international tax perspective, because you're then expecting people to comply with something that they were not even aware of at the time when that law didn't exist. So I mean, little bit that has been done, at least on the goodwill front. What used to happen earlier is um, goodwill used to be allowed as a depreciation basis a ruling judgment by the Supreme Court of India. Now that has been overruled. While this is okay because government can take that view and can form and has the right to form the law, and but this has changed, and going against the judiciary system is something that I always view it not to be a very perfect stand. Instead, the judiciary system, whatever are the views of the Supreme Court of India, at least the apex court should be fully honored wherever possible, which kind of has not been the case too much. But with this change, goodwill depreciation is not allowed for businesses. So they cannot claim depreciation on it if they're purchased. There's a whole debate on how do you see goodwill? Is it self-generated or is it purchased? So we're only talking about purchased goodwill. And in that front also depreciation is not allowed. So there is a lot of focus on raising foreign capital because that is going to be very good for India. At least we're going to get more money in the foreign exchange. And that really helps from various perspectives, at least if you talk about financial, if you talk about the numbers improving, which are then merged into the finance budgets and so on. So that has been the focus, which is quite evident for the past many years that India has been liberalizing the FDI regulations, have been ensuring that the NR investments are welcomed in form of providing tax incentives, in form of relaxing the limits, in form of opening various sectors and ensuring that they come into it, and then there is more growth in that sector and the economy kind of works better. And so that has been also a focus point. There has been relocation if the fund managers want to move into a IFSC, which is a International Financial Services location. So I'm missing the C, but this is what has already been brought in more about. They can come in, and then when they transit, when the transfer is happening, that is tax exempt, and various other provisions have been brought in that aspect. Talking about just a few key sectors that I would like to talk about. I'll briefly take it up. Manufacturing has been already been one of the key sectors that India has been trying to focus on. It is to do with Make in India push. It is very much required, but the technical abilities of India are still, I don't think, matched with the giants, say, for example, of China and so on. So level ground has been tried to be built up by imposing certain custom duties for the imports on certain electrical devices and various things like that to provide more impetus towards make in India for domestic players. So that, and while that is a little bit can be questioned and debated, because in an inflationary economy, should you do this to uh, I mean, but that has already happened. So there have been a little bit increase in the custom duty rates for various goods to bring in a push towards make in India. That already is happening. There is, I mean, a lot of focus on zero defect, zero effect policy, which is a great policy to adhere for. In terms of infrastructure has been the backend for is a very strong pillar for the Indian economy. And that has been focused again. There have been now focus on 100 more airports under the UDAN scheme, which is really welcome. There is a PPP model, which is again refocused on again in this budget that should be done for smart cities, which is a very welcome move. So 5 smart cities are coming, or at least the policy measures say so. We will have to see how it is actually implemented. But this is a welcome move. Um, there are many highway bundles, but then they are trying to monetize it. So the government's focus is also on monetization of various assets that they have in LIC, in certain banks, and also in infrastructure. So they like every year plan to raise money through monetization on this, which has again been the case here. There is a proposal to build various I mean, transport projects, which are very welcome and will help the economy, which is already requiring a lot of help from the government through policy measures and others. So that is already done. Logistics is again a focus point, at least in the modern India, especially during COVID time, that all the giants of e-commerce have kind of focused on, I mean, has backed up on logistics as well, because everything is now home delivery. So more focus is there on the logistics part. And on that bit, once the roads improve, infrastructure improve, it also improves indirectly. And then there is also a proposal to corporatize one major port on the stock exchange, which is a welcome move. We'd love to see how that happens and works out in effect. Um, Apart from that, I think many things have been again mentioned already. So I would just like to briefly mention if there is something, but have been already mentioned by other speakers. So I would not take too much time there. MSME has been a focus point for India because major businesses have been MSME driven. If you talk about number, how much do they contribute? These numbers are really high. So now government has been trying to focus on it. There is financing loan products which have come in, and government will be focusing on it. There is a focus on creating more credit opportunities and giving more finance to such MSME, even based on their invoices. So various Factor Regulation Act has been amended, various things like that have been amended to help the MSME sector, which will also help various other financial sector at the same time, because both are interlinked. If you talk about technology sector, and this is what I wanted to touch about, technology sector is one of the biggest gainers in the COVID time, because everybody is kind of working through information technology and various other fronts. So technology has been the focus point for it. Knowledge-driven enterprises are there, data centers are to be set up. For that, real estate gets impacted, and it's a good opportunity for them to really set up and help the 5 cities. And technology is something which they already, I mean, if you talk about their expertise, the expertise is already there. The kind of transformation has already happened, and that's exactly what the income tax department is also deeply benefiting from in today's age, because they have all the information, thankfully, because thanks to all the information giants that kind of help them to set up the data centers, function them, and maintain all the information and give it to them, and how it all happens is quite cool. Focus on quantum computing technology is something that the policy is coming now. I mean, how the implementation happens is a big question mark. We'll have to see that. I will just talk about a little bit on healthcare. Healthcare is the focus, because especially during COVID times, and the emphasis has been now to have more hospitals and hospital beds in tier 2, tier 3, along with medical colleges. And closely linked towards that is education sector, which also helps in various fields. But in terms of a policy, a new education policy has been promised, which has been a long-standing demand. I mean, let's see how it all comes, because it's a difficult thing to do. Then if you talk about financing needs, there have been some policy measures towards that. In terms of tax, there have been changes in Section 1023 3AD, which is regarding the free tax exemption given to educational institutions up to a certain threshold to meet a certain conditions, and freely without even they having a certificate. So that is a big change, which should impact and will help a lot of small education societies or colleges or institutions in India in many ways. So that is there. I've been told I have very limited time and already I've exceeded the time frame, or that we are falling behind the time. So I would like to wrap up on that with the focus on skill development also, that the skill development is the need of the hour, because India is service driven. The service sector of India is really high. Job unemployment is a problem for India, which has to be focused more strongly. And there has been focus, at least on the policy front, if you talk about online education, if you talk about various budget allocations towards various sectors, which can lead to employment. But the need is really high, and very grave and strong measures are needed. Real estate and infrastructure sector is already been covered, so I would not like to talk about that a lot. But many needs and many demands of the sector have been unanswered. The revival of the sector is there. I mean, we hope to have it, but the long-standing demands for the revival have not been fully satisfied to a large extent. However, some timelines, some timeframes for affordable housing sector has been extended. The interest subvention scheme has been extended. But if you talk about deduction of 1.5 lakh, it kind of means that you have to go to old regime of taxation. So that's going to be a tough one in the implementation. When people are claiming it, they will have this dilemma of saying, should we go for the new tax regime of claiming no deduction, or now you're saying we will incentivize